everybody. Welcome to last floor, final floor. As I started getting through pulling up the first few boards, some were pretty beat, especially the ones sitting atop the concrete, on top of the foundation. That would be to be expected. That is to be expected. Just a lot of moisture is going to permeate from the concrete into the wood and kind of get it all rotten and mushy. Even a couple boards had some pretty healthy ant colonies baked in. I feel bad for them. Seems to be a bit of a spring apocalypse for the insects that are trying to live in this house. So be it. What I found though is once I got through the first few rows, which were crudely nailed straight down through the flooring, I got to the original flooring that was installed, much like any tongue and groove flooring, like I was explaining before. You got your groove, and then the nail is towed in on an angle through the groove, and you slide another piece over, tongue in a nail through the groove. And the problem that I'm seeing is, toe in a nail through the groove. They're flat head nails, not finishing nails. So I went pretty quick through the top layer of floor because they were finishing nails and the floor is a little bit old and soft. I could just pry the boards up and most of them would come right up off the nails. Made it a fairly quick process. Probably took maybe 8 hours in total or so to get the whole floor off. With this, it's going to be a lot slower if I don't change my approach, because I'm using the nail puller to pull those flathead nails. They're as likely to kind of fold or break off as they are to pull up. So I'm taking a different approach. I got Mr. Grinder, ear protection, and safety goggles, and what I'm going to do, I'm hoping this will speed things up, is just grind. Like I use the where is it? This to scrape all the dirt and gross off the top of the tongue to find the nails, right? They can be located through, just looking for the rusty discoloration. But scrape that off, find the nails, use the grinder, grind the head off entirely so that I can then just slip the pry bar in between the floor, tap it forward off the groove, and then once I have it up and off the nails that are now headless, I can just use the nail puller, have a lot better access, wave to the neighbors, a lot better access to pop the shanks of the nails out of the floor joists. So again, the idea would be, rather than either trying to slowly finesse and coax and pry them up and slip them off without breaking the groove on the next board, breaking the tongue on the next board, I'm going to grind the heads of the nails off and then push the board up off those smooth shanks and then remove them after. And we'll see if that speeds things up. Well, that was a quick flop, I think. Doesn't seem like it's getting me a whole lot of extra advantage. Takes a bit to grind them off, really, compared to the time like when they actually do come out properly. So let's try this one. So that's a lot less time than grinding away at that head and potentially having that thing break and send a shard of disc at me. And grinders are questionable at best, or maybe it's just me and grinders. So what I'm going to do is I'll just keep trying to pull these out. It's going to be tough slogging, but for any of the ones like the one at the beginning here where the head popped off, I might just use the grinder just to make sure there's no other leftover bits, just so that it slides off nice and easy. But yeah, it is what it is, and here we are.
this is what we've got going on down here. And that is all the junk that we have to find another place to keep. Nice.
There's the 2 bolts. Roll down the old hardware.
We could use that as a door for something else.
I might be able to. That might be all seized up, but like you can look at the bolts. They're pretty rotted. But I might be able to put new. If the bolts just slip through, I can replace them.
Yeah.
And then we're using a little bit of it, like we could use it on the dock for a little water hatch or something. I don't know. Cool. Yep.
Yesterday there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise. And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin, restoring everything within. Oh, dreamy, breezy, we go easy, easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other. Beyond gravel, beyond all. Hand in hand, building castles out of sand, reaching for the grand. As willows align, we lose track of time. Head up high, now we climb. Dreamy, breezy, we go easy, easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other, beyond gravel, beyond all. A bigger scale, the world inhales as we go. I wouldn't want it any other way, no.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to The Hole.
Yeah, so we are done. Al took up the second floor and took all of the nails out, but we got a lot of rain before we did it, and so they're pretty wet. So we're just letting them lie out for the day before we put them away.
Yeah, I noticed when I was prying nails, if I was like compressing the wood a little bit, it would almost sponge. So it's old wood, so it's very porous. So I figured we'd dry it out so it doesn't get moldy or rotten.
Yeah, and so all of the, are they joists?
Yeah.
The
Oh.
joists for the that held up the floor.
Yeah, it turns out they're all solid
They're
cedar.
cedar.
Yeah, we're really happy about that. It's a nicer material. It makes sense too. Like, there a lot of planning went into this place. I think it was, you know, the original builder was well in the know and had access to some, probably, you know, some high-end materials for building at that time. Like just the fact that it's a concrete and stone foundation and not just dry piled stone like I've even seen with houses in Toronto. That's kind of unique to this area, apparently. Maybe not. I don't know. I have to do a little more research before making that statement. However, what's really neat is it's hard to see what all was original because this wall here on this side, the east side, is almost entirely poured concrete now. You can see like the boards that were used as the form in that. I would think that much like the back wall that is crumbling, and you'll see in the pictures that Kim's going to take, I would imagine the east wall was doing the same thing. So they took that stone out and they just basically recast an entirely new wall. But it looks very original on the western side. And what you have are, I'm not sure if it's one very wide board or if it's a couple of boards, but it looks like the way they did it was you have your joists that are connected by your rim joist, right? So that's holding your floor together. But then underneath on the outside, like the edges of the joists, there's a board that runs underneath them. I don't know yet, but we'll see. I suspect that they're nailed in from the bottom. And then the idea is that you have your foundation wall, it's about 5 feet. Then that plate that sits on top of it, then the joists sit on top of that plate, and then your bottom plates, your sill plates, would go on top with your walls. And in between each joist at the end, they piled up additional stone, and it's cemented in place. So the only thing I can think of is that it's ballast to hold the house down. In other words, in modern construction, you either have threaded bolts, like J-bolts that you set in the concrete when you pour your footing, and then, you know, your plates go over top of that, you drill holes and the J-bolt goes through the plate, and then you washer and bolt it down, and that holds your walls down so that if wind gets underneath the rim of your roof, it's not going to pick the house up. So I think the version of that with this construction is essentially piling a bunch of stone in between the joists on top of the foundation wall with that board running underneath to basically hold it down, to keep it from shifting or moving and lifting in the wind. I could be wrong. Anybody that knows a little more about balloon construction than that, let me know in the comments or whatever. But that's where we are so far. So
Our plan for the day is we're letting these dry,
Yep.
and then we are down at the end where the door is that goes into this, like, literally the crawl space that they have there.
basement system.
We are removing the 2 joists there so that we can get into the basement and remove all the stuff that we've been keeping down there, like the wire and
Yeah, I want to take, like, so right now it's a wooden header that sits across, like a lintel that sits across from the old stone wall to the new poured wall on the east side. And then there's a joist sitting on top of that, and I have cranked my head on that coming out of it I don't know how many times, and I'm tired of it. So first things first, we're going to remove those 2 joists, remove the header, so that we just have a clean walk down in. And like Kim said, we've got some old wire, we've got some old copper ground wire. It's really neat. Now, again, we'll take some pictures. It's I don't know if they still do this or what the application is, but it's almost like a 4-way braid, like a square braid of copper wire, and it's pretty thick. It's got to be almost an inch in diameter. My neighbor thinks it's for lightning rod. I think it might just be ground cable, but either or. We've got that, whole bunch of old wire, our original poop barrel that we used. So
I don't know if you guys remember, but when we first moved out here, we were using that barrel before we had our septic bed, before we did our septic bed. And basically what we did was we used to take that to a nearby campground and dump it there.
Yeah.
We only had to do it 2 or 3 times, I think.
Yeah, you fill the trailer holding tank, and then when the sensor says it's full, then we would dump it out into this 55-gallon barrel that I had put a gate valve on. Once that was filled, then we would precariously put that onto the back of the truck, tow it, like Kim says, to the campground, and then dump it in their field bed.
Those were the hard days.
Yeah, that was a real old-fashioned.
Yeah.
So now we're going to split that barrel up its length, like basically slice it in half along its length, and I'm going to turn that into basically a leach field
down by our outhouse. So for the shower water, the sink water, and the urine that comes from our composting toilet. Solid waste still, it's not going into the ground. That's going to compost, and then we'll use it for gardening around the periphery, like the cherry trees and things like that.
Yeah, but as much as we want to be throwing things out, we want to reuse things as much as we can, and obviously that barrel can't be used for just anything.
Yeah, I'm not interested in washing that out, knowing that it was containing Z-poop.
So we're just going to take that and put it down by the outhouse until we're ready to do that project, but get it out of the basement.
Hide it in the bushes.
Yeah. And
right.
Yeah, so we're going to have our work cut out for us because there's a lot of stone down there, and we're still debating over where we want to have that stone pile, because we are going to have to cut the grass and do the foundation and all these different things before we're actually going to be building our
we want it
chimney,
close,
which is what we're using it for.
Yeah, I want to build a stone hearth with a bread oven and everything, very old-fashioned, but it's a lot of stone, and we want to pile it so that it's close to the construction site, but we want to make sure we think it through so that we don't, oh wait, I didn't think of that, and then it's in our way, because it's not like the kind of thing where, let's move that several tons of stone from there to there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we'll think that through.
And then
out
the flat stuff in the basement, I think I showed you that before, but it's they poured a floor, and it's cracked and broken up because of the heaving, but we're going to use it for a little pathway coming from our door. Al's already used a little bit for that
just
purpose,
like patio stone. So it's 1.5 inches concrete. There's no reinforcement whatsoever, and I think it was just poured on the sand floor, so no layer of gravel or anything for drainage. And again, this is a very clay-laden land around here, like literally, apparently like 100 and some feet of it. So there's a lot of expansion and contraction from season to season, and like Kim mentioned, I think that floor just probably busted to pieces, I would say, within a year or so of it being poured down there.
But their mistake is our win.
Yeah. So it's like pre-built concrete patio stones.
Yeah.
And all nice and different shapes and things. So we'll make a little mosaic.
Yeah.
It'll
Because
cover
we
up
still
all
have
the
a little
slop.
bit of a mud problem at the back and the side there where the grass didn't take as easily. So we're going to have to do some more planting of grass soon. And but in the meantime, at least going in and out of the house or the box, we won't have the issue of
just
mud all over
everywhere.
our boots.
Yeah, because again, it's the worst. It's the worst mud, like clay. It's like soup, and it sticks to everything. And then when it dries off, it turns into this superfine powder, which then gets everywhere on everything, always.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's it. That's our
it.
day.
Clean out the waste. Oh, nature waits. Now come around, come on naked. Too much skin is how we get in. Oh, get me high, love me dry. Medicate a new waterway. Now close your eyes, and I promise to kiss the night. Well, stand by me. I like the sound of a wave. Watch me as I dance. Have you known romance before? The kind where you feel lost while you adore. Oh, get me high, love me dry. Medicate a new waterway. Don't chase the
Oh. Are we good?
Yeah.
Check. Big balls. Is the microphone on?
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.